update on Mikey Garcia and the possibilities of him still fighting Spence this year or being on the Wilder Fury card?
No, it's not going to be on the Wilder. I mean, this is a pay-per-view on its own. I think, you know, as I kept saying, and I think more and more people now are starting to realize that what I kept saying, that Mikey Garcia is pound for pound the best fighter in the world, and you know, he's serious about fighting Spence, and I think that's going to be another fight which is going to have to wait until sometime in the first quarter of next year, because you can't go and do these big pay-per-views back to back.
Bob Arum is making waves now. He says he wants Terence Crawford to come across the street and fight Terence Crawford at 147, but most notable Mikey Garcia at 135. Speak to that unification, and how does negotiations work to actually bring that fight to fruition?
Well, you know, as I said, I think you know, I think fights can happen as long as it's a give and take. You know, if all these fights will have to happen on one side of the street, it's not going to happen. But if it can be worked out that some of them are happening here and some of them are happening there, then it could happen. But for the time being, you know, there's really, you know, on the PBC side of things, there's so many great welterweight fights which can happen, that whether Terence Crawford is part of it or not, it just doesn't really matter. It's not like everywhere I go, everybody's telling me, oh, we need to see Spence against Crawford. I just don't have. And nobody, frankly, talks to me. I mean, talk about fans. Nobody really talks to me about that. I mean, a group of reporters, yes, but you know, I think people are just equally, if not more, intrigued, and I'm being asked all the time, when is Mikey Garcia going to fight Spence? People are really starting to buy into that fight. And I was watching recently an interview by the great Larry Merchant, who was saying that he's very, very intrigued by that fight, because it was Larry Merchant who actually came up with the idea of little Pacquiao fighting big Oscar, and we all know what happened in that fight. And he said, they asked him on that interview, they asked him, who would you pick in that fight, Spence or Garcia? And you know, in typical Larry Merchant fashion, he reflected very carefully on it, and after a little pause, he said, well, I wouldn't bet against Mikey Garcia. So that's a guy whose judgment I very much value, and so, you know, I think there's more and more interest in that fight, and people are asking about the fight. And in the meantime, you know, Bob is doing a great job at ESPN. He can keep Crawford and Lomachenko busy over there.